Are you considering grad school but just don't know how you're going to afford it? What's up everyone, welcome back to Free to Be. David here, and thank you for joining me for another video. Now in today's video, I want to talk about grad school and specifically the price and costs associated with it. Now, as many of you may know, I've gone to grad school and I actually left that school with a ton of debt. So it's very important for me to make sure I spread knowledge and information that's good and will help people in their journey to pursue education, because honestly, the cost in this country associated with education is ridiculous. And if there are ways that you can circumvent the process in terms of taking out loans and becoming riddled with student debt when you're done with the process, then I'm going to share that information with you. But as always, before I begin, if you're new to my channel, I cover financial literacy here in an effort to track my progress to financial independence. And hopefully by doing that, I'm bringing you valuable information that you can use in your pursuit of financial independence as well. So if you are new to the channel and haven't done so already, please just take a moment and click the subscribe button down below. I really do appreciate the support. And if you're not new, it goes without saying, but thank you again for coming back for this video. All right, so pursuing a graduate degree is expensive, and it could be as expensive as $70,000 to $80,000 a year. So how do you prepare for that? How do you plan on the cost that's associated with this so that you don't have to be stuck in a situation where you get out of grad school and you're $200,000 to $300,000 in debt like me? And that's what we're going to be talking about today. I'm going to go over a few ways that you can start saving money for grad school. So the first one applies to you if you are currently in the workforce and debating on going and pursuing another degree, a graduate degree. What should you start doing? Well, the first step you're going to want to take is to split the current paycheck you're getting in preparation for the costs associated with graduate school. And how you can do that is have your payroll split out the paycheck into two different sums, where some of that money is routed to one account and the rest of it is routed to another. Now, the focus here is obviously where the savings happens automatically without you having to think about it. Your money that you need for your living expenses in your day-to-day life go to your regular checking and saving, and the second amount of money goes to a different account without you ever touching it, and that way you can start building up some savings for grad school. Because when you do go to grad school, you may go full time, which means you will lose your primary source of income. So the more money you have, the better off you'll be. And so the second part of this process really does play into that first one, is if you don't have a separate savings account, create or open a separate savings account. You need to have a second savings account or separate account that's just dedicated for this effort, because you don't want to go and be tempted to touch the funds that are in that savings account. Now, if you end up ultimately not going to grad school, obviously you can have access to that savings account. But I think worst case scenario, you're really just building another savings fund, another emergency fund separate from everything else you have. So by creating this savings account that's separate from your regular checking and savings, you can have a piece of your paycheck automatically routed to that other savings account and start building up a sizable amount of money for grad school. Now, the third tip to this whole process is doing research on the different types of financial aid and grants that may be available to you. Maybe the school you're looking into also offers scholarships. Look into all those different types of assistance, because those will ultimately lower the cost of your education. So for example, when I got into grad school, I actually got into a few different schools, but a couple of them offered me scholarships. So it really helped pare down my decision to those schools that offered me the money to go. But there's also other options, right? You have financial aid, that's an option, and some state schools offer grants. So make sure you definitely exhaust all of your options and do as much research as possible before you actually take the plunge. Now, the next thing you're going to want to do in this process is to check with your employer, because if you're going to grad school to learn a skill or to gain knowledge in a specific area and it relates to your job, more likely than not, your employer will be willing to contribute some amount of money to your school. So it's important to check with your employer, see if they have any programs in place where they help and give you some education assistance, and that way it's another way. And that's another way to actually just get some extra money to pay down the cost of that graduate degree. And most employers are happy to help their employees further their education, because ultimately that ends up being an asset that they can use and utilize in their workforce as well. And I think that's definitely an important one, so don't forget that step. And finally, the last part of this process, as you're thinking about graduate school and going back to school, is to look at your current student loans and see if there's a way to consolidate them and lower your monthly payments. Because ultimately, again, when you go back to school, you may have to give up your actual income, your day-to-day income, so that you can pursue your education full time. And even if you end up working part-time and going to school full-time, your income is going to be a lot less. So it's really important that any debt that you have, any existing payments, recurring payments, are as low as possible too. So look into refinancing your current student loans. And also sometimes when you actually go back to school, you can defer your student loan payments with no penalties and no extra interest for the duration that you are in school. So make sure you explore that option as well. And that's it, guys. It's not really rocket science, okay? We understand that education, specifically education in America, is very, very expensive. So you have to get crafty. If you're thinking about going back to school, if you're pursuing a graduate degree, or you want to go to a trade school, whatever the case may be, there's a few things you need to think about. First, you're going to want to think about if it is worth it to you. Second, you're going to want to think about whether it's going to be something that's going to help you advance your career. And finally, you have to think about the cost. And thinking about the cost is something that you have to think about long term, because the likely scenario is you're not going to come out of school with no debt. And so you're probably going to be carrying this debt for years down the road. And if you can help curb any of that by saving in advance, make sure you do that. And that's the whole point of these tips that we talked about today. All right, guys, well, are you thinking about going to grad school? If you are, let me know in the comments down below. If you have anything that you think can add to this list and help others, let me know in the comments down below as well. If you like this video, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. If you are new to the channel, please take a moment and click the subscribe button down below, and we'll see you next time.